Hi, I'm John, and this is Dice Paper Miniatures Live Clips. These are segments pulled from my Twitch live streams. This is a way for me to cross-promote both my YouTube recorded content as well as my Twitch live streams. The kind of content you'll see on the live clips focuses on, well, the material I have over on Twitch live stream, but in bite-sized segments. Everything from miniature painting to hobby reviews and discussions, unboxings, and various industry news. It would be awesome if you could click that subscribe and notification bell for future content updates, as well as share this content. All of this helps with the YouTube algorithm. In addition to helping the YouTube channel here, it also helps bring awareness to the Twitch livestream, which is typically at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. The schedule is a work in progress, so it definitely helps to follow me on Twitch so you don't miss any of those live streams there. But if you do, that's what the live clips are for here on YouTube. And lastly, before we get into the content here for the live clip, please consider checking out the merch store over on Teespring, where I have things like t-shirts, mugs, stickers, banners, and now face masks, which are perfect for respecting the space of your fellow gamers at your local game store. Furthermore, some of these live clips I do reserve for my Patreon page, which if you haven't checked that out, I definitely encourage you to check out the Patreon, as that is just another way to help support the channel, which helps creating the content that you see here. Thank you so much. Now here is today's live clip. Well, hello everyone. How's it going tonight? It's just Tuesday, it's just Tuesday. All right, so yeah, this evening, hopefully everything's coming through okay. I have, yeah, I think this is working out. I got another device over on the side here that I use to watch the stream, and it's doing some weird stuff, but maybe it's okay. Yeah, we'll call it good. I'll be painting here for probably most of tonight's show, and looks like I have a few people on tonight. Thanks for joining me. This will mostly be just working on the Chaos Pact still. Yeah. I had the base coat colors to touch up, or it looks like 8 models. So Abaddon black and Mephiston red. Some haven't been painted those colors at all yet. Others I have painted those, but if you've followed me this far into this journey of painting this team, you'll know that some of these miniatures I had already painted these base colors about a little over a year ago for a tournament that I played in, where the requirement was to have at least 3 colors on the models, I should say. Yeah. Wait just a little bit, see if anyone else jumps in. But yeah, we'll get started here soon. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with painting. 1 second, let me adjust the camera. I think my local game store, they're still trying to make up from the previous season. Things kind of got sideways, of course, with the pandemic, but they're actually open, and they have a limited amount of players that you can have in the store, but they are playing again, and yeah. I think that's good. That should be in frame and relatively visible. All right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the black on that first. And if you're new to watching, you probably already know that I'm pretty blind, so when you see me duck in and out of frame, it's just to get paint. Currently what I have set up, I have some flow improver. This is the true flow. This is just to help. Yeah, there's probably a glare, but this is the true flow that I'm using. Huge bottle. But it just helps with getting the paint a little thinned out. And then of course a wet palette. So yeah, for those that are watching, what are some of the projects you guys might be working on, whether it's painting or just games in general? Make sure this is in focus, actually. Give me a second here. Yeah, let me know if this falls out of focus. I've changed my camera distance up just a little bit. Give myself a little more light. We'll see how this works. It's always a little tricky to do this at the start of the show. I've been doing a lot of editing of past streams and trying to be better about just getting clips so you don't have to watch the whole stream over again. But for those that missed the stream, can go over to YouTube and catch just specific segments from the original live stream. I'm trying to be better about that. And then I also just released a new episode, which is basically just an update on my progress so far on this team. It does take a little bit of my live stream content, of course, and then I also did try out a new turntable, display table, if you will, and did like a little 360 rotation of all the models. Just kind of experimenting. I'm still really pretty new at doing this kind of content, recording or live stream, and so I'm experimenting with some different things. This was maybe a little heavy on the true flow fluid, but that's alright. I'll end up probably putting two layers down. But yeah, if you haven't yet, and you didn't want to watch the full previous live stream that was recorded, you can definitely go on YouTube and check it out there. Looks like I'm in frame okay. Yeah, I probably have this a little thinned out too much, but again, that's not a huge deal. But as I was saying, yeah, if you're watching, if you have any projects you want to talk about or have any questions about the paints I'm using, or if you're using some other paints, like I'm starting to get really into experimenting with some different brands, kind of not necessarily while I'm recording content, but on my downtime. I've been exploring different acrylics as well as some oil paints. I want to get a little bit more comfortable with using them before I do any content for that. Frankly, I just want to get this team painted up and done. And then maybe I'll do some actual educational videos, put my teaching hat back on, but those seem to be, you know, There's so many great educational videos now, so many different YouTubers and streamers, Twitch streamers that are doing that kind of content. I'm not entirely sure if I would be bringing necessarily anything new to the table, but if you just prefer my approach or tone of voice even, or presentation style, then maybe there's some value for me to do that. But yeah, there's just a lot of good content creators out there right now that are doing that kind of educational content. Even to the point where they're getting into like the chemistry of the paint, which, cool, you know, that's your thing. It's definitely original, at least for now, until, like everything, once someone does it, then all of a sudden that becomes the new format for all sorts of different content creators for a while. It's kind of like literally, you know, perfect example would be someone like PewDiePie. Like, there are people that have copied his format and he moves on, but yet other successful streamers will kind of stay on that format until they decide if they want to use his new format as a guide or if they just stay in that mode. It's so funny. He's like, his latest content that I've seen is following a TLC program where it's following a guy that I think he's got like a marijuana business in California, and he has kind of like a mail order bride kind of thing going on from Russia. And poor guy, long story short, spoiler, you should watch PewDiePie's content for that. It's interesting, but he ultimately goes to jail for 2 years, and he just got out of prison for possession, which of course he got it for possession. That was his business. But really, you know, when you look at the history of PewDiePie, that's quite a departure of just a kid playing games and like screaming, reacting to what was it, like horror and suspense games back in the day. I still think he does like is it Minecraft and some other games. I don't watch him that much, but every now and then he pops up on my updates. It's funny, I think he's pushing hard for his like 106 million subscribers now. it's amazing. Why does that... okay. I think that's accurate. Just checking out the chat real quick. Yeah, I think that'll work. Just getting into some of these crevices a little bit more. It's all about the crevices. I think that's Twitch friendly content right there. Yeah. So I did have some of this the black parts painted already, but I want to touch up this kind of like black fur, kind of a wolf pelt, if you will. I was really bummed when I painted these back, initially, that I had to rush it and I couldn't finish these up before the tournament and then the subsequent season that followed. Because I was so reluctant to put a sealant coat, a varnish coat, if you will, at the time over them. But because I didn't, a lot of this paint rubbed off. Fortunately, the primer, the Zenithal, man, that's a hard word to say all the time. The Zenithal primer coat held up pretty good overall, but all the paint that I painted on top of it, with the exception of the skin tones, if I actually got the gloss shade, if I got that gloss shade on it, then it seemed to seal it up pretty good, almost like a varnish coat. But other than that, it definitely rubbed off on some places. But yeah, as far as paints, like if you saw some previous, either the Twitch stream or the live clip, I talked about picking up some new Scale 75 colors, whether they're acrylics, but I also picked up, called them creamy acrylics on a previous stream, but technically they were called smooth acrylics. It's just, I had that creamy acrylic thing stuck in my head because a lot of other content creators kind of referred to their consistency as being kind of creamy. But basically they're kind of a thicker cream-like consistency, which you can thin out, of course. It's just they're very pigmented. I need to touch that up a little bit. Trying not to mess up my skin tones if I can help it, even though I do have to go in and touch them up, so it's not the end of the world. Yeah. And brushes don't taste like chicken either. If you saw the thumbnail I made for my previous YouTube video, I was fake licking a miniature, and I posted on Facebook that tastes like chicken. So, obscure little reference there. Although chicken flavored brushes might be a thing. Make them taste like tendies. Because who doesn't like chicken tendies? If anyone from the Trapped Under Plastic podcast happens to catch this, they know what I'm talking about. That reminds me, I'm usually pretty religious on seeing those episodes, but I think I missed the last one. I'll have to go back and check that out. Huh. Yeah, I also mentioned too in a previous stream where I really shouldn't have put these on bases yet. Like, I like how my bases turned out overall with the texture paints, but they make painting these a real pain in the butt. So I should have avoided that for sure. But, you know, with the exception of painting these up, at least to make them playable back in late 2018, I hadn't painted miniatures in, gosh, 5 or maybe even 10 years. So I just I got so out of practice of the basic steps I should be taking. But which is again why I'm doing this. It's just an excuse for me to get back in the habit. As well as I've been wanting to make Twitch and YouTube content for the last few years, probably since about 2012, when I started working on a personal game project. I was really wanting to stream for the business back then, but I just didn't have when you start a small game company, there's a lot of moving parts you don't take into consideration. So getting comfortable with using your cameras, using your software, using your equipment. Even if this content proves to be unsuccessful, it's been a great, learning experience. I'm gonna keep after it for as long as I can, for sure. I had some artists recently reach out to me to work on a trading card game that I used to be the art director on for a game called Argent Saga. I doubt any of those artists are watching right now, but if they are, I haven't been involved in the project since June of last year. So, about the time it went to Kickstarter. I would recommend just going to the website. They have, I believe it's an Argent Saga website. I just recommend going to their website and look up a contact information, and I'm sure there's an email address there. I have to be honest, as much as I love the game industry, and obviously I'm making content related to it right now, there's just so much potential toxicity going on right now. I hope that sorts itself out soon. Not gonna lie, it's kind of warm. So, in completely unrelated news, not that I'm an affiliate for the Ford Motor Company, but they just previewed the new Bronco for 2021. I can understand that some people may not like that design, but I really like it. The only thing I thought was kind of strange is they basically have two versions. What I would call like the classic or retro design that comes in 2-door and 4-door. I'm not quite sure why they made like what I would call the Soccer Mom edition, other than the fact that, yeah, the Soccer Mom edition is probably going to outsell the other two. But they have like a sport version. They call it sport, which is funny because they all got decent performance, but it's less off-road, it's more of the minivan model. Still a cool, I mean, even the more tamed version is decent, but I really like the look of the 2-door, 4-door, and the traditional Bronco style, the non-Soccer Moms package. And they have quite a few like models. They have like your standard base, then like a premium, then like a deluxe, and then like actual packages, whether they're off-road, like slow, if you will. So I'm assuming that's to like go slow over large obstacles versus the more of the off-road racing package. The wheels themselves too, the actual tires, are more. Looks like they have more of a tread, if you will, on the slow off-road version versus the high-speed version. But God, they look amazing. Speaking of amazing, and back more to the topic at hand as far as just the hobby games go, it was pretty funny. Initially it wasn't funny. Initially it's like, wow, that's kind of sucky. But like Games Workshop, the Indominus new box set for 9th edition selling out, and a bunch of online shops basically hoarding the inventory, buying hundreds of units, and then it forced them to put a restriction. I think the restriction was 45 per game store, which seems high, but if you know, there were a number of game stores that were actually freaking out that 45 per store may not be enough. But then fortunately GW came back and said, hey, you know what, we're basically doing a print on demand kind of thing, print to order. So if you miss the first wave, you can go ahead and still place your order online with your local game store, etc. And they're going to print more as needed. So that's super cool on one hand, and also a big kind of giant smack in the face to all the speculators and scalpers out there. I'll admit, if I was you know, someone that bought a bunch of units, now marking them up admittedly can be ridiculous, especially for a brand new product. I don't have an issue with marking up stuff if it's been out of print for a while, but being brand new, yeah, that was pretty crappy. So it's nice that they're giving their customers an option to not have to pay the scalper's price. Sorry if I'm veering off frame a little bit. The detail on some of these are pretty small, and they got like this little furry portion that squeezes out between the gauntlet and the hand armor, if you will. And trying to get that adequately colored black. It's a little tricky. Again, this kind of goes back to, again, assembling these and putting them on the base before I painted it. Not the best idea. So again, learn from my mistakes there, and don't do that. And it's funny because it's not like I have like the cork. I have like florist wire to mount onto cork, so I could paint these in pieces and then assemble. Like I know all that. I have all the equipment for it. I just think I was in such a hurry, and initially I was like, it's not going to be a big deal. I'm just going to do tabletop quality. I won't get too upset about it if it's, you know, if I have some foo bars here and there. But the reality of it is I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I may not look it in the video, but in reality, this is super tricky. Yeah, I'm just gonna get paint in places I really don't want to, but I'll just have to go back and touch it up. That's what was it? Blood for the Blood God specialty paint from GW's Forest to cover up mistakes with just splattering some blood. You know, it's a Chaos team, it's meant for that. Not to mention Blood Bowl in general. It doesn't hurt to have some blood on the costumes. Seems appropriate. Or mud, you could do that too. Or if it's like a Northern Viking or Valhallan team, snow could be used for sure. Okay, 1 second. Not entirely sure where all that paint just came from, but oh well. Oh yeah, I think I know what I did. All right. Kind of a quiet evening. Okay. So I got most of the black done. I gotta finish this gauntlet and then probably some hearts on the head. It looks like there might be a little bit more of a delay than I expected this evening. Huh, I wonder if Twitch is getting kind of hit hard. Or if it's more on my end. Yeah, going back to that Indominus box set, the new 9th edition. My local store got their store copy. I got a chance to look at the sprues and look at the rule book. And yeah, that's sweet. Not sure. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it. Definitely a little bit on the pricey side, but at least it's not inflated. Kind of wonder what the online prices are going to drop to with GW saying they can print on demand with this or print to order. Hey man, thanks for joining me, Tyler. You know, just painting this stupid Blood Bowl team. I've been putting more effort into clipping my streams apart and making actual, like, the YouTube videos just to try to get some more content out there more consistently. But by doing that, I haven't had a chance to paint these too much. There's only so much time in the day, and I've had a lot of client work. For those that don't know, my main deal is creative design, art direction, etc., etc. And yeah, it's just been busy. I had a past student reach out to me to help her get her green card to confirm her classes and whatnot. So I've had a lot of requests for like recommendation letters, but I've never had anyone reach out to me to help with the green card. So I gotta look over that documentation. But that's cool. We see so much crap in the news that we're such a terrible country, but I think that's just the media is always trying to create division. The reality of it is, if you look at first-generation immigrants that are, you know, legal immigrants that come here, and then go through the actual process, and then, you know, and their kids as well, there's just, it's really hard to argue the opportunities we have here in the U.S. If you travel abroad, it becomes very obvious that the stuff you see in the news just isn't quite the reality that we offer here. So, I'm not going to get any more political than that. That seems like an odd request. What? Oh. Yeah, it does seem like an odd request. In fact, I had some of my other past, like, some of the other past adjuncts that I guess I worked with. It's weird when you're an adjunct professor, you never really see your coworkers because, you know, we're all teaching class. But there was like, is that legit? Is that a thing? And I was like, yeah, I think it is a thing. But, I mean, in a previous lifetime, you probably know who I'm talking about, Tyler. But when I lived with one of my old girlfriends, who I was, you know, God, not to get super personal, but that I was engaged to, we lived together for like 6 years. Her family was from South Africa, and they went through the green card process, the normal process. But at the time, I didn't ask a whole lot of questions about it. But they were definitely happy to be here. Although I think, obviously, they missed their family that were still in Africa. But yeah, we didn't really talk about the process too much. I was also like in my 20s and pretty dumb. Or naive to ask questions. I wish I would have asked more questions about that process. It's kind of funny, I've dated or lived with a few international people, and I just never really got in the conversation of the process. Just never really came up. They were just usually happy to be here. So how you doing tonight, man? You say you're just kind of chilling and watching TV? I guess since I'm assuming my audio's coming in okay, if you're commenting. Well, that probably just put a bunch of paint on my nose. Yeah, I need to log into my site. I'm sure I got a bunch of plugins I need to update, and had a little bit of a panic attack last night. For some reason, usually Squarespace sites are really good about giving you like a heads up about your domains, etc., about to renew. So I can inform my clients, hey, just giving you a heads up, it's about to renew. Is all your credit card information, up to date? Do you have it set? It's set to auto pay, so I want to make sure that's not going to cause any problems. But it literally sent me a notification. Usually it's like weeks or days in advance, but it was like the same day. It was like the 13th I got the notification, and it was supposed to reset on the renew on the 13th. So I freaked out a little bit that if it didn't auto renew properly, this was like 1 in the morning. I'm like, there's no way I can call my clients or client to have them update their credit card information. And they kind of had a debacle with their previous designer. Didn't get their domain renewed properly in time, and someone stole it and then made a total fake site, which was pretty funny, I gotta be honest, but pretty crappy at the same time. But yeah, I need to get into my personal sites and make sure my plugins are up to date. Apparently, have you looked into, is the new Gutenberg block system, is that just going to break all my themes and page makers or page builders, or is like Astra Pro and Elementor going to be okay? Or is that actually what you're working on tonight, fixing things that broke? I guess I can just paint over this whole thing and then go back and hit it with red or silver or metal. I mean, the new blocks are supposed to be a new, like, update, like a huge WordPress update. Unless I, like, it's been over, has it been out now? Has it been out for a couple weeks? I thought there was a huge new edition coming out that was still in beta. Adam from WordPress, is it WP Crafter? That's who I saw one of his recent videos, but I was short on time, so I didn't get all the way through it. Just realized I need to log in to an MMO I was playing. I probably got kicked out of the guild. I haven't been on in forever. Oh well. I talked about it early on. I was going to be making content for Warhammer Age of Reckoning, which was the private server for the old yeah, it's Return of Reckoning now. It was called Warhammer Age of Reckoning, hence War, W-A-R. But I was in a really sweet guild that was really helpful for character progression, but the problem is I got a little upset with the developers. They kept redoing the skins on the character costumes, and I would get, like, I'd spend all this time to get the look I wanted, to get the gear I wanted. And if you've ever played games with me, you know I'm kind of like, aesthetics are a big deal, and kind of a really particular about the look of my tunes. And the fact I spent so much time and they changed the skins like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, fuck this. I'll have to bleep that out later, of course. And this gets reposted to YouTube. I'm thinking about, there's a new streaming service out there, I think, called DLive. And, BitChute? Maybe it's BitChute. BitChute is for, like, the YouTube equivalent that's more, like, free speech friendly and not censored as much. And I think DLive is, like, the Twitch equivalent. God, I hope that doesn't get this stream removed by even saying that, but I think I want to expand to those different platforms as well. because these two seem to be super sensor happy. I mean, I'm sort of using Gutenberg blocks in a way, right? Like, that's, even though I'm using the classic editor mode, like those blocks are still in the back end, aren't, I don't know. Are they eventually going to force it to where you can't use the classic mode and you have to use blocks? And are blocks friendly with page builders? I think that's good for now. I'm going to let that coat dry. And work on another model. Have a drink of coffee. And my shameless plug, Dice Paper Miniatures coffee mug. Available on Teespring. Ba-dum-bum. That's a great question. I'm not using blocks for my content, for my my blog content, at least not yet. I'm using a post theme that I built in Elementor Pro. But again, if blocks gets to a point where they're I can just use them natively, because there's some benefit to that, right? Like there's a speed. A speed benefit, although I need to, speaking of speed, I need to activate some of my cache speed improvements on Dice Paper Miniatures still. The host itself is supposedly has some built-in speed, but I want to say, shoot, I forget the name of the speed that's built in, but there's also like light wave or light speed that also is a cache improvement. That's what I need to activate, but kind of have to do that stuff at night when no one's on, because it can potentially do some things. For as much as I dust, I don't know why I got so much dust in my space, but I do. And I mean, it's not like I have any cats. Alright. I don't need to touch this one up too much. Okay. I'll look into that. I definitely feel that page builders are a little bit on the, they're a little limited, or maybe it's just the theme, or maybe it's a combination of the theme or just Elementor itself. I'm not sure. To customize my post templates, it's better than it used to be for sure, but it's still a little, I feel like it's a little restrictive. Maybe not so much the posts themselves, but like the post archive. You can't customize all that much, at least not in my experience. It's better, it's just, it's not perfect. So maybe blocks, I can do some more modifications with the actual post archive. Hey, Ascari. Have I tried Vallejo? Tamiya paint? So Tamiya paint, there's some, I've used some of their specialty paints, but they kind of have, they're kind of like this weird hybrid. They're kind of an acrylic, but not an acrylic. And same way with Vallejo. I have the Vallejo pigments, but I haven't used the game color. Like, that's the model line that a lot of folks recommend as their game color. But I think it's the game color. I haven't. Mostly just the pigments, the dry pigments, and some of the specialty, like there's like the worn effects or the heavy chipping or light chipping, those types of acrylic effect paints. I've used those, but I haven't actually used the game color. And at this point, I don't know if I will anytime soon, because I had an opportunity to buy a lot of Citadel paints from a couple different game stores in my area closing. I basically got them at like 60% off or more. So of course I filled out my paint rack with those paints, and then I kept seeing a lot of good things with the Scale 75 color, which is out of Spain, I believe. So that's basically, I'm using the Citadel paints right now mostly because that's what I started these models with. But eventually on new models, I'm going to try the Scale 75, the normal acrylic line. I also bought their smooth line, which is, I called it creamy, but it's got a thick, a heavy pigmentation, a thicker consistency, kind of like Chimera paints, which I believe are also out of, I think they're out of Spain, but maybe they're out of Italy. Chimera paints are the ones I really want a chance to experiment with, because they have like the highest pigmentation of any like acrylic paints, from what I understand, for painting models or miniatures. But I have a hard time finding them here in the States. Like, I don't even know if you can get them here. That being said, the Scale 75 smooth line has somewhat of a similar heavy pigmentation to like the Chimera paints. And then I bought the Abteilung. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's 502 Abteilung, I believe. I'm not sure if AK Interactive makes those, but they sell them on their website, or if that's a Scale 75 offshoot, or if Abteilung is their own thing. But they're an oil paint. Now, I got the oil paints from them because I thought they had the pigmentation size of the paint was a fine pigment, so it would versus like a thicker pigment from like like academy grade or school grade for like beginner artists. Those oil paints kind of have a thicker pigment, so they're not necessarily ideal for painting miniatures or models. But I thought they would have a thinner particle or pigment size from the Abteilung, but I think his name is Marco Frisconi, or Frisoni. I apologize if I got that wrong, but he just reviewed those and he put them as kind of in between, not as good as some of the artist lines that are out there for pigmentation size or pigment size. And so I guess I have to play around with those more before I have an opinion on them. But my initial thoughts were, because they offer so many different colors that are pre-mixed, that kind of saves time too. And there's consistency. If they're already pre-mixed, you don't have to try to, if you come back to a model weeks or months at a time, you don't have to try to worry about blending the same color. It's already pre-blended. But anyways, that's where I'm at with my paints. So Scale 75, Games Workshop, and then the Abteilung for oils. Catching up with what you said, Tyler. There are some things I can need to fix. Okay. Yeah, Ultimate add-ons I use. I've never used, well, obviously, I don't use Apple products anymore, so the speech-to-text thing isn't a thing that I have to worry about. Or maybe I need to, if people use Apple products and they want to use it for their website, and my site's not necessarily friendly for that. I'm not worried about it. There's times where I feel like I need to bring on or subcontract out to a developer. There's just so many moving parts for everything anymore. And everything being a subscription plan where it feels like it's never fixed. It's just update after update after update. It's kind of like that with video games too. I guess I sound like the old man that says get off my lawn, but it used to be you'd buy a game or software and the thing was done. Like, it was fully designed, fully finished. You didn't have to like update everything all the time. And that's just that's not how it is anymore. Everything needs constant updating. Which is kind of nice to do traditional art using traditional mediums and, you know, not have to worry about the technology side of things. Paint and whether it's acrylic or oil have been around for hundreds of years now. So, well, I don't know about acrylics, but definitely for oils. So what do you use, Ascari? Are you a Vallejo and Tamiya user? Is that your mediums of choice? Yeah, I think that's a good business to be in. There's definitely a need for developers, for sure. I just have to know enough to make it work. And I try not to beat myself up over it. Now, I just got done talking about how I'm digging just using some classic mediums like oil or acrylic. And I'm kind of down on technology, but at the same time, I want to learn ZBrush for 3D modeling. Oh, speaking of which, if you're still on, Ascari, what do you use for your 3D model work? Do you do much 3D model work anymore? And if you do, what do you prefer? Yeah, airbrush. Sorry, I'm going to jump to that topic while you're probably still working on typing out the answer to my previous question. I have two airbrushes. I have basically a brand new Iwata Eclipse that I intend to use. And then I have a Badger Solitaire, which is also basically brand new because I had a bunch of old airbrushes, but they were the siphon feed, not gravity feed. And I used to hate using those siphon feeds. They seem to always just get gummed up. Paint would always dry on the tip. I spent more time cleaning the thing than actually painting. And that really turned me off from the airbrush a long time ago. And then when I started getting back into doing miniatures, it seemed like everyone was using airbrushes. And I mean, if anything, just to do like, you don't need either one of those types of airbrushes to do like prime coats versus a rattle can. But where I live, the humidity can get kind of crazy and the temperatures are the extreme. In the summers, we can hit 100 degrees, and in the winter we can hit like -60. So extreme weather, and then you add in like crazy humidity. You almost have to have an airbrush to prime your models indoors. So at the very least, there's a benefit to having an airbrush for that. But I agree, at least the siphon feeds were always a pain in the butt. I haven't played around too much with my gravity feeds yet, but I will. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that talk about how to thin your paints down. So that helps with your paints getting dried up on the tip, or just general hassles with maintenance. Some guys just leave like most of their airbrush in like a cleaning fluid and never really bother cleaning it. I guess that, you know, that could work. I'm always worried about stuff like the plating getting worn off from leaving it in solution all the time, but maybe that's not a thing to worry about. Yeah, with windshield it gets minus 60, dude. You know that. It's not very often, but it happens. Lately, we've been pretty fortunate. I mean, if it gets to minus 20 or 30, that's kind of the extreme, but... I also think it was colder when I was a kid. We got more snow in the 70s and 80s, and the temperatures were way more extreme in the 70s and 80s. Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know if you were using much 3D for, like a lot of guys seem to use ZBrush and maybe Blender to do like their composition, and they paint over it in Photoshop. I know a lot of guys do that, and a lot of people are successful at doing that. I personally found that if that's what you're using 3D programs for, likely your illustration work ends up looking like a video game model, right? Not so much like an actual illustration. And it was always really difficult to get illustrators that relied on painting over a 3D model to not make their work look like a 3D model video game asset versus an actual illustration. Again, there are guys that can do it, but on average, I always, when I was, especially with like when I was working with guys that were doing Argent Saga, there were a number of painters, illustrators that were using 3D programs to draw over or paint over, and it's almost a crutch. That being said, I think there's some value in using some 3D programs or modeling, like a Poser or ZBrush, just to help with getting lighting, to understand how lighting works if you don't have the ability to have like a physical model in front of you. There's some maybe value to that, but if you rely on it too much, I think it's more of a handicap. That being said, if you're a concept artist for like movies or video games, then just the speed that you can produce concept art, there might be some upside to using some 3D assets. There's a number of guys that then that's a whole different animal. But finish illustration work, I think, can be tricky using relying on 3D too much. I don't know if you can see it too well, but in the background I have it's an oil painting. It's a master study of Frank Frazetta, one of his Headless Horseman paintings. It's I believe it's 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide, but I painted that about 10 years ago. Eventually I want to do some more traditional flat 2D canvas painting on this channel too from time to time. And when I paint canvas work, it's usually just the Academy student level oils. I haven't really been able to justify buying the higher end oils for that. Have you done much work for Argent Saga at all lately, or any game companies, Ascari, or are you just pretty much doing just personal work right now? Let me know if I'm asking too many questions or too fast. I know I don't think English is your native language, so if I'm speaking too fast, just tell me to slow down. I could try to speak in Spanish, but my Spanish is not good. Actually, I need to work on that. I need to get my foreign language skills back. Yeah, for sure. That's what it seems to be, especially for architecture and just for speed of getting the environment built to paint over quickly. That seems to make sense. I worked at a startup company that did educational, well, yeah, I think it was educational software as well as just traditional like kid-friendly software. And the guys that worked there at the time, they used Blender and I want to say Lightwave, which I think at the time they went kind of like open source free, I think. That's why they used it. Fair enough. Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, as far as the language stuff goes, I don't know where, I think with the pandemic that kind of sabotaged a lot of development, but I can't say for sure. I haven't been involved with the team and haven't really spoke to anyone about the progress of the game other than what the public can see since last June of last year. I think it had a lot of momentum and a lot of potential. It just 2020 has not been a good year for a lot of game companies. Although it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be had, it's just the ability to play the games in a store has been very hindered. And especially with a new game company, if you can't have people come into your store, you can't go to conventions, it's kind of hard to show it off. And I can't say for sure, but I don't know if Battle for Solaria, if they're going to do anything more with that, or I want to say they were working on a deck builder, and then there was also talk about an online version, but I just don't know. I haven't spoke with Jesse too much about it in quite a while. I know him and Neil, who was the like playtester, director type individual. they have a Twitch channel called, I think it's called the Shuttle Bus, and they play stuff like, or Shuffle Bus. Yeah, Shuffle Bus. They do content, I think, for the Transformers card game. It's just kind of a hobby kind of thing for them. But after Battle for Solarian Argent Saga, like, I needed to take a break personally from like art directing, but then also like kind of, I don't want to say it burned me out, but there were times I wasn't really happy with how things were going. So that kind of took a lot of my enthusiasm for card games away. And then, you know, I like to play card games, but between getting kind of burned out in the industry a little bit, and then every card game I like to play, with the exception of Magic, seemed to go out of production really fast, whether it was manufacturing issues or distribution issues. But there's a number of like FFG games that I love that, you know, they canceled for a variety of reasons, and it's super frustrating to get involved in a game and then have, for reasons, it disappear in a couple years. So yeah. But I try to stay in touch with all the artists still, for the most part. Or at least keep up to what they're working on, because if I do get the opportunity to work on a game project again, obviously I want to reach out to the artists I've worked with in the past. And it looks like some of them are doing work for Wizard of the Coast now, for Magic, or for D&D. So that's cool. Looks like a few of the artists, like Gunship Revolution out of the Philippines, those guys, they do good work, and so that makes sense that they're doing stuff for some of the big boys now, so to speak. Yep. Another thing too, I still have like local clients that I do design work for, and so trying to balance that work with the contractual game development work, it was a lot of things to balance. Yeah, speaking of the Gunpla that you mentioned, one of my other local hobby stores here in town, it's probably not happening right now because of the pandemic, but every Sunday they had like a meetup where they would all buy new kits and build like same day. I don't know if they painted too much or if it was just a building group, but yeah, it's pretty popular. Very cool. Well, I always liked the work you did for the projects I was a part of, for sure. Um, I was really mostly because I had more control over it, but I really liked our setting for Battle for Solaria. So needless to say, I was a little more partial to that stuff, but what you're able to do for Argent Saga was also amazing, I thought. Especially some of the environment stuff. Speaking of environments, like, you may not have maybe liked them as much as maybe some of the other stuff, but as far as assignments go, but I really liked some of the environment stuff you did. Was really awesome. There's like this girl, I forget her name now, on YouTube that does like Gunpla stuff, and it's definitely interesting to see how that appeals to a variety, you know, wide variety of people. And her channel, she's got like display case after display case, and yeah, she did like a walkthrough of her studio space and a lot of kits. I didn't realize how many of them were like almost like the scale was quite large. To finish a miniature for what I'm working on, how long does it normally take? Well, when I was doing this more consistently, when I was younger, I could crank out an entire team of like 16 or 17 models in a day, but I am nowhere near that speed at the moment. And I took a lot of shortcuts. When I was painting at like scale, so to speak, I would use like rattle cans to do like the base coats really quick, and then I would dry brush over it, maybe do the skin tones a little bit more detailed, but they were pretty fast production line type work. So yeah, I could do up to like 16 or 17 in a single day, or I could take one and it could take me 16 or 17 days. So I was hoping to get this entire team done by the end of July. I don't know if I'm on track for that, but we'll see. We're gonna find out together. I'm also not painting every day either right now. I'm only getting in just a few hours a week. When I was doing those assembly line paint jobs, I was probably putting in like 10 or 12 hours a day to get all 17 done. And that was everything. That was the base is done, everything. But if you're talking about how long does it take to finish up a Gunpla model, I've never put one together. I've only watched people do it. Yeah. I like the subject matter. I like seeing the completed work of those model kits, and like the cartoons themselves. I always enjoyed. Like Gundams in general, just really cool. But if I had to choose between Gundams and like, I'd rather, back in the day when I was a kid, like having Gundam like toys, or even like Transformers, like old school Transformer toys. I like playing with them as a kid and having them on my shelf. But as an, you know, the age I'm at now, I lean towards this kind of stuff. But I still appreciate, you know, the Gundam stuff for sure. Alright, I think for the most part, his black elements are done. Alright, Tyler, I'll see you later. Thanks for stopping in and chatting for a bit. I'll try to talk to you more later, too, if I have some Gutenberg questions with blocks and whatnot on the new update coming out. In fact, let me check what time it is. So I've been on for about an hour and a half. I'm going to take a brief break, and I'll be back in a few. It'll say 15 minutes, but I don't expect it to take 15 minutes, but I'll be back in a probably like 5. All right, and I'm back. Wanted to hit some of these larger areas real quick with another layer. Of Abaddon Black. So if you're still on Ascari, what are your issues that you have with your airbrush? Is it just the paint kind of plugging up in the airbrush, or just the hassle of it in general? Switching out paint cups and refilling and whatnot. Oh, okay. Is it, are you getting, like, runs in the paint where it's little spider webbing? Or is it, like, a fuzziness? Or just an overall, like, is it translucent to where it looks like it's not covering the model with a nice, clear coat? Some rough parts, okay. Okay. I know when I use, there's also like a distance involved too with the airbrush. If you're too close, a lot of times you'll get a little bit of spidering, especially if the paint's really maybe mixed too much with like a water or a medium that makes it kind of watery, if you will, in general. Or if you stay too long on one part, it will spray out the paint. But then if you're too far away, you can get kind of a dusting effect where it almost gets like a gritty texture. I had that issue a lot actually with aerosol spray cans, where I get sometimes a texture that I don't want versus a smooth coat. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's a combination of, do you have enough like thinner in the paint to make it cover consistently and evenly, but there's also the proximity or distance your airbrush is from the work and how long you stay on a given piece versus move quickly over the surface. That can be a thing too. So technique in that respect versus just the paint itself. At least those were the things I struggled with whenever I used it. And I used to use, I used my siphon feed airbrush for painting 2D art. That was what I did to learn using the airbrush. But then I also painted a lot of RC car plastic car shells. So there was a time when I was pretty good with it. I would get a nice even coverage, but that was years ago. Definitely humidity can affect it. That's the problem with aerosol cans too, when you prime coat with like a rattle can or spray paint. Yeah, if you don't have an air conditioner to get some of that humidity out, that can be a problem. So, yeah. GW makes these handles, not to change the subject, that are usually pretty nice, but I wish they had like an armature where you can rest your hand on without touching the model. Also, these 50mm bases are a little tight inside their standard issue miniature holder. But then if you go to the large miniature holder, even the first tier to grip the model is too big. Not that I want to give another idea for another thing I have to buy from GW, but it would be nice if they had a size that was in between this and this. Like, these are just, they need like or this should have been designed with a ring, one more layer inner ring, because while this smaller one works for the 50 millimeter base, it's so tight when you extend it out. It actually makes it can make the base kind of bend, or it can like put an indentation in the actual base, which, yeah, I wish they would come out with if this were small and this were large, they would need a medium size. But I digress. Is it always warm in your part of the country, or world, I should say? Or do you get some cooler days and lower humidity as well? Yeah, that's what I thought. We definitely have extremes here, but it's almost always humid, which surprises a lot of people considering how far north we are. But it can be pretty humid. So normally, this is a goblin from the team. You get one goblin on the team. Normally they're kind of shades of green, but I'm experimenting. This might eventually have some green shading done, but I kind of want to have him just be a little different, be more on the yellow side. So we'll see how that works. I'll probably finish up the black parts on this model, and then I'll probably call it a night after that. I definitely appreciate for those that have stuck around or joined me tonight. Definitely Ascari, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do this more often to grow not only the channel here, but also try to grow my YouTube as well. It's kind of the only drawback to all this. I consume a lot of Twitch and YouTube content myself, so trying to get a balance of doing my own work and as well as watching others is kind of it's tricky. Do you work mostly from a home studio, or do you go to an actual office space or studio space to work? Yeah. I mean, you can make a good excuse for that, right? Like, it's just part of your, education, or just part of your interests and keeping current on things. I mean, you can justify it, that's for sure. But it can also be a little distracting. Yeah, I asked about the studio space because initially this year I was really going to try to get a different studio space outside of my home, but I ended up not doing that, and then with the pandemic, it's like, probably just works out for the best. I'm working from home still. Yeah, same here. About the only thing I really did different for this channel, I have like this, well, there's like a white wall to the side of me where it has like a Dice Paper Miniatures like banner hung on it. That's just like a soundproof curtain, and you can get them in all sorts of different colors. I just got white because the rest of my walls were white. In retrospect, I probably should have painted this like almost like a gray or almost black color. It would have allowed my colored lighting to like have more impact. But in any event, I went with white, and it also kind of helps divide up my space from the rest of my, so basically it's a large room. And it's kind of nice, especially if you have people over, to kind of separate out the studio space from my living space. But speaking of the pandemic, I hardly have anyone come over, so it probably really didn't matter that I put that curtain up anyways. Oh well. It does help with noise, though, I think. So it sounds like the US is going to have a new trade deal with Mexico and I think even with Canada. So I'll be curious how that all works out. Because right now, so much of the stuff we buy, comes from overseas, right? So, like Amazon, like most of their products tend to be products that are coming in from China and whatnot. And I wonder, moving forward, because there's a lot of changes happening right now in the world. I wonder how that's going to impact what we can and can't get here in the near future, let alone the long term. Yeah, that was my concern with having a studio at another place, because as I'm sure you can relate to, as an artist, you're working on some work and then you're watching some social media stuff, or you just simply want to grab a quick bite. And while it's convenient maybe to have your studio next to a coffee shop, sometimes those expenses can add up. Sometimes there's are you leaving your equipment in your studio or are you taking it home? There's some logistic issues involved in there. And unless you're working with a number of other artists that, kind of inspire you and you can, give each other critiques and whatnot, if you don't really have that interaction, then a studio that you have to drive to or walk to or even bike to, whatever, and the extra expense and it's... Unless you're working with a lot of other people, you may as well just work from home. Well, we've never had that option really here, so I can't speak to that, but the thing I'm kind of bummed about, let me re-say that. I had expectations of using TikTok a lot more with my social media, and I have it on a bunch of my Dice Paper Miniature stuff, like promoting it and links to my TikTok page. But there's a really good chance that's going to get banned, so I'm kind of like, crap. I'm going to have to go back and redo all these graphics and remove that if we end up banning it. Which, to be fair, it's a cool platform, but it's not the most easy to find content on unless you know the specific content creator where you know their name. It doesn't give you a lot of search options like you can find, at least in my opinion. Whereas like Facebook, you have a lot more search options. Even like Twitch or Twitter, YouTube, there's a lot more search options. But I felt like you're just kind of at the mercy of the algorithm when it comes to TikTok, at least in my limited early experience. But yeah, the whole Huawei phones, they've always had, the government here has not been a real fan of those. So I think there might have been some people here using them, but it's kind of frowned upon. And that's gonna kind of, I think, keep moving forward. And not to get super political, but I don't know about you, but I, part of that watching a lot of content, I listen to and watch a lot of world news, and it's mind-boggling how much is going on that I don't think the general public, at least here, we're so focused on our local and national politics. We don't look at the world politics enough, and I think there's some value in watching world politics. And who knows, maybe, that'll provide opportunity for other companies, whether it's in, Mexico, the US, or Canada, to step up and maybe we'll get some, some other alternatives that we didn't even think, didn't think were possible or expected, but provide new opportunity. I think that's relatively okay with the black elements on this model. The thing that concerns me with China is they've instituted that new law where they can go back, and if you've said anything negatively on social media and you go to a country that has like extradition laws with China, in theory they could arrest you, and that just blows my mind. That scares me, because I don't know what's considered safe or not, I guess. I don't know. Hence why I try not to talk about it too much on my streams. Yowzers. Alright, well, I think that'll be my painting for this evening. I have the black elements to touch up on this Skaven player. And then I have a lot of the black color on this Minotaur to touch up, just add another layer. And then I still have some elements on the Troll to touch up. As well as the Ogre. Like the strap and whatnot need to be touched up. And then once I get all the black elements touched up, I'll go back and hit all the red, and then I can actually go into shading and highlighting, and then doing some detail work just to kind of bring everything together. Eventually, things like, you've probably noticed the numbers. Thanks, man. The numbers on the bases, those were just done quickly. Eventually, I'll have the numbers actually painted on the models themselves. I just did that as a quick way of making sure I kept track of the actual number for each player when I was playing in the tournament and on the leagues. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to do like a number transfer to put to the model, or if I was going to paint their numbers by hand. I actually think I'm going to probably do it by hand to make it kind of just like a quick, scratchy typography style. They are meant to be a chaos team, so it can be a little dark, if you will. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for tonight. But anyways, thanks, man, for hanging out tonight and talking a little bit about some of the things you're working on. I do try to keep an eye out for some of your illustration work as well, so keep that up. And yeah, I'll be back probably later this week. I may even be back tomorrow. I do want to load up this fantasy football game, Blood Bowl, that I have on Steam. I need to load it back up onto my laptop, and I want to stream some of those games as well, especially with, I don't know if you saw the beginning of this, but I talked about how they have the new teams that you can play for the actual board game version. They've been on the Steam version forever. So I kind of want to get back and practice with that before I build my teams to play in person. So anyways, all right, man, that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks again so much for everyone that stopped in and said hi and just kind of checked it out. And I'll be back on again soon. So have a good night and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.